Hello and welcome to another video with videos to fall asleep to. In this video, we will cover the history of pizza. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Think, for a moment, about a circle of dough. It is the simplest thing in the world. Flour, water, salt, yeast, time. Yet, this simple circle, this edible canvas, has conquered the globe more completely than any empire in human history. It crosses every border, transcends every language, and bridges every class divide. You can find it in the frozen aisle of a Midwestern supermarket, and you can find it being lovingly blistered in a 900-degree volcanic ash oven in Campania. I'm talking, of course, about pizza. But how did we get here? How did a poor man's street snack from the squalid, crowded alleys of 18th-century Naples become a multi-billion-dollar global obsession? The story of pizza is not just a culinary history. It is a story of poverty, of exploration, of royal PR stunts, of mass migration, and of the sheer, undeniable power of taking what little you have and making it delicious. Act 1. The Shield and the Hearth. To find the true origins of pizza, we have to go back, way back. Long before the word pizza ever existed. If we define pizza loosely, as flatbread baked with toppings, then its ancestors are as old as civilization itself. In ancient times, plates and bowls were expensive. If you were a peasant or a soldier on the march, you needed a vessel for your food. What better vessel than the food itself? Picture the soldiers of the Persian king Darius the Great, marching through the ancient world in the 6th century BCE. They didn't have time to build grand ovens. They baked flatbreads directly on their battle shields over open fires, topping them with cheese and dates. The ancient Greeks took it a step further. They had a bread called plakos, which they flavored with olive oil, herbs, onion, and garlic. The Greeks were the true pioneers of the edible plate. And then came the Romans. The poet Virgil, in his epic, the Aeneid, writes of Aeneas and his men landing in Italy, so hungry that after eating the toppings off their flatbreads, they devoured the bread itself. Aeneas's son jokingly declares, "Look, we've even eaten our tables." The Romans called their version panis focaccius, which you might recognize today as focaccia. For thousands of years, this was the status quo. Flatbread with oil, herbs, maybe some cheese or preserved meat. It was good. It was sustaining. But it was missing the defining element. It was missing the soul. It was missing the tomato. Act 2. The Poisonous Apple and the Streets of Naples. To understand the birth of modern pizza, we must travel to Naples in the 1700s. Naples was a thriving, chaotic, densely packed waterfront city. It was the capital of the Kingdom of Naples, full of wealthy aristocrats, but it was also bursting with the working poor. These laborers were known as the Lazzaroni, named after Lazarus. They lived their lives entirely outdoors. They worked outdoors, they socialized outdoors, and they needed food that was cheap, fast, and could be eaten on the move. Enter the pizza. Street vendors would walk the crowded alleys carrying massive copper boxes on their heads called stufas, filled with hot, cheap flatbreads. But what made these flatbreads different? The tomato. Now, tomatoes are not native to Italy. They are native to the Americas. When Spanish explorers first brought them back to Europe in the 16th century, the European aristocracy was terrified of them. The tomato is a member of the nightshade family. Aristocrats ate them on pewter plates, which leached lead into the acidic fruit, causing lead poisoning. They called it the poison apple, and grew it only as an ornamental houseplant. But the Lazzaroni of Naples were starving. They didn't have the luxury of fear, and they certainly didn't have pewter plates. Someone, somewhere, took a chance. They crushed this bright red, acidic, sweet fruit and smeared it across a disk of dough, threw it in a wood-fired oven, and took a bite. It was a revelation. The acidity of the tomato cut through the rich olive oil. The heat of the oven caramelized the sugars. The modern pizza was born. These early pizzas were simple. The pizza marinara, named not because it had seafood on it, but because it was the food of the marinai, the sailors, consisted only of tomato, garlic, oregano, and oil. Cheese was a luxury. When they did use cheese, it was a cheap horse milk cheese, or occasionally mozzarella made from the milk of local water buffaloes. To the wealthy upper classes of Italy, this food was disgusting. It was considered the filthy food of the filthy poor. A famous Italian author of the time described pizza as looking like a patch of filth that has been run over by a carriage. It would take a queen to change their minds. Act 3. The Royal PR Stunt. The year is 1889. Italy has recently been unified into a single nation. King Umberto I and his wife, Queen Margherita of Savoy, are touring their new kingdom, and they arrive in Naples. The Queen is tired of the fancy, heavy, French-inspired haute cuisine she is served at every royal banquet. She wants to taste the food of the people. So, the royal palace summons the most famous pizzaiolo, pizza maker, in Naples, a man named Raffaele Esposito. Esposito is terrified, but he is also a genius of marketing. He bakes 3 different pizzas for the Queen. The first 2 are traditional, but the third is a masterpiece of patriotic pandering. He takes a base of crushed red tomatoes. He adds white patches of fresh mozzarella cheese, and he finishes it with bright green leaves of fresh basil. Red, white, green. The exact colors of the newly unified Italian flag. Queen Margherita takes a bite. She loves it so much she writes a letter of commendation to Esposito. And Esposito, knowing exactly what to do, names his creation after her, the Pizza Margherita. Now, historians will argue about whether this story is 100% true. There is evidence that pizza with tomato, mozzarella, and basil existed before 1889. But the truth doesn't matter as much as the legend. The Queen's endorsement was the greatest PR stunt in culinary history. Suddenly, pizza wasn't just peasant food, it was royal food. It was Italian food. But despite this, pizza remained largely confined to Naples. The rest of Italy still looked down on it. For pizza to conquer the world, it had to leave Italy altogether. Act 4. The Great Migration and the Slice. Between 1880 and 1920, over 4 million Italians immigrated to the United States, fleeing poverty and seeking a better life. The vast majority of them were from southern Italy and Naples. They arrived in cities like New York, Boston, and Chicago, bringing their traditions, their language, and their recipes. In 1905, a man named Gennaro Lombardi received the first official license to open a pizzeria in the United States, located on Spring Street in Manhattan. Lombardi's was a revelation, but the pizza had to adapt to its new environment. In Naples, pizzas were cooked in wood-fired ovens. In New York, wood was expensive, but coal was cheap and plentiful. Coal burns much hotter and longer than wood, resulting in a crispier, charred crust. Furthermore, freshwater buffalo mozzarella was impossible to find in America. So, they used drier, low-moisture cow's milk mozzarella. And finally, there was the economics. In Naples, a pizza was a small, personal, unsliced pie meant to be eaten quickly. But in New York, the factory workers couldn't always afford a whole pie. So, Lombardi and other early pizzaiolos started making the pizzas bigger, cutting them into wedges, and selling them for a few cents a slice. The New York slice was born. You could fold it in half to keep the grease from dripping on your shoes, and you could eat it while walking to your shift. It was the ultimate urban fuel. Soon, the concept mutated. In Chicago in the 1940s, Ike Sewell and Rick Ricardo wanted to make pizza a sit-down, knife-and-fork meal. They put dough in a deep cake pan, layered it with mountains of cheese and meat, and topped it with crushed tomatoes. The deep dish pizza was born. Yet, even by the start of World War II, pizza was still considered an ethnic food. If you weren't Italian or living in an Italian neighborhood, you probably didn't know what it was. Act 5. The G is and the global boom. The turning point was World War II. Thousands of American GIs fought their way up the Italian peninsula. When they weren't fighting, they were eating. And they discovered the cheap, delicious local fare. When these soldiers came home to America, they brought with them a craving for pizza. Suddenly, the demand exploded outside of Italian neighborhoods. And capitalism responded. In the 1950s, the Celentano brothers patented the first frozen pizza. It wasn't great, but it brought pizza into the suburban American living room. Then, in 1958, two brothers in Wichita, Kansas, borrowed $600 from their mother to open a small pizza restaurant. Because their sign only had room for 8 letters, they called it Pizza Hut. A few years later, in Michigan, Tom and James Monahan bought a small pizzeria called Dominic's. They focused relentlessly on one concept: delivery. They pioneered the corrugated cardboard pizza box, which kept the heat in and stopped the cheese from sticking to the lid. They renamed the company Domino's. This was the industrialization of pizza. It was no longer an artisanal craft. It was a logistics operation. Chains like Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's spread across the American landscape like wildfire. And then, they spread across the globe. They altered the DNA of the food to suit local palates. In Japan, they put mayonnaise, squid, and corn on it. In Sweden, they put curry powder and bananas on it. In Australia, they cracked eggs over it. Pizza had become a blank canvas for global culture. The conclusion? The circle closes. Today, the global pizza market is worth over $140 billion a year. It is a behemoth of fast food, delivery apps, and stuffed crusts. But a funny thing has happened over the last 20 years. As pizza became more processed, more industrialized, a counter-movement began. We started looking backwards. Today, there is a massive resurgence of the true, authentic Neapolitan pizza. The Associazione Verace Pizza Napoletana, the true Neapolitan Pizza Association, was founded in Naples to protect the heritage of the craft. They have strict rules. The dough can only be made with specific 00 flour, San Marzano tomatoes, and mozzarella di bufala. It must be baked in a wood-fired oven for no longer than 90 seconds. In 2017, the art of the Neapolitan pizzaiolo was officially added to UNESCO's list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. We have come full circle, from the shields of Persian soldiers to the starving alleys of Naples, to the royal palaces, to the neon-lit delivery cars of America, and back to the roaring wood ovens of Campania. Pizza is more than just cheese, sauce, and bread. It is the ultimate testament to human ingenuity. It proves that with enough heat, enough time, and a little bit of desperation, we can take the absolute bare minimum of ingredients and turn them into magic. So, the next time you open a cardboard box, or the next time you sit down in a dimly lit pizzeria, take a moment before you take a bite. Look at that circle of dough. You aren't just eating dinner. You are eating a slice of human history. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, and